Well, hello again, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I am Kevin Mullins, your host for this particular YouTube video, and indeed this entire channel. So today I'm going to talk to you about a wedding that I photographed in September last year here in the Cotswolds in the United Kingdom. It's the wedding of Claire and Oliver. Beautiful, really beautiful wedding. Much like I did in the last video, I'm going to show you a whole load of images first, and I'm going to talk to you about each of those particular images. And at the very end, you will see the photo film, the whole thing that the clients will have got. So the whole idea of these little videos is to give you an insight into my mind, my thought process, how I approach the day, how I approach certain scenes, why I shoot in a particular way. Now, one thing that you will probably be very well aware of if you've subscribed to the channel before is that I'm a documentary photographer. That means everything, 100%, is candid. I do not interfere or interact with anything on the day itself. So what you won't get today is posing tips, portrait tips, all of that kind of stuff. You won't get any lighting tips, although you will get a little bit of conversation during the dancing section about how I use the Manfrotto Lumimuse. We will dig into an edit, a black and white edit, just one small picture. It'll take about 90 seconds, and we'll show you how I edited that in Lightroom. But the whole point of this is, as we walk through the pictures at the beginning, that you can understand how and why I shot, what I'm doing, my positioning, how I'm using my ears throughout the wedding day, which is very, very important, and that holy trinity of light, composition and moment. Now, what you're also about to see, before we get into those images, is my new YouTube promo. Woohoo! Boom, boom. I've used the great software that is Motion Array to create this, and the music that is underlying the whole of this video is from Artlist. And you can get 2 months free by following the link below to Artlist. And the one thing that a lot of people assume with Artlist is it's just for YouTube creators, but actually it's not. If you're a wedding photographer, you can use Artlist music on your photo films, which is what I've done in this particular case. And it is an amazing body of work there. So do check out the link to Artlist and Motion Array as well. Promo coming up, photos coming straight after that. Enjoy. Okay, so here we are, starting out bridal prep. The bridal prep place was where the wedding reception would be, which was about a half an hour drive from my house. And the plan of the day was to go to Barnsley House, do some bridal prep, drive back to Malmesbury, where the church was, which is actually in my hometown. Ceremony there, and then back to Barnsley House for the rest of the day. Now, you'll see the EXIF in all of the images. It's a bit difficult to see in this one, but you can see it there in the bottom left, and you'll see it in every single image. This was before the X-T5 was around, so I shot this on an X-T4 with the 18mm 1.4 lens attached, and an X-H2S, which I had very briefly with the 56mm 1.2 lens, the new versions of both. And the X-H2S I never really got on with, so I sold that. And now actually, if I'm shooting a wedding today, actually I'm shooting a wedding tomorrow, I will be shooting with two X-T5s, X Pro 3 as a backup, X70, X100 in the pocket, that kind of thing. So here we are, bridal prep. And the first thing I do at bridal prep is I don't just bumble in and start taking pictures of everybody. I typically will raise my camera, say hello, all of that kind of stuff, and take pictures of the wall, the television, the floor, whatever, just so people can get used to me being there and hearing the sound of the shutter, all of that kind of stuff, rather than me just immediately start taking pictures, especially of the bridesmaids who aren't particularly expecting me to be there. So what I'm always looking for is juxtapositions, reflections, light, that kind of thing. It's always about the light. It has to be. I've said this so many times on the channel. Light, composition, moment, the three parameters that you need to be making good pictures. Now, of course, it's not possible to have all three of those in every single picture, but that's ultimately what we're looking for. So little tiny angles, little bits of light before I start getting shooting properly, so they're not just constantly thinking, oh my God, Kev's here and he's pointing his camera at me. All right, next up we have the bride's mum. And again, look at the light. The light is nice. I'm just wandering around the room at this point, just looking out for things to take pictures of. I'm not getting too deep into the whole process just yet. And one tip, if I can give you one tip about bridal prep and the mums, always make sure the first image that the mother will see when she's looking through the images is a pleasing one of herself. Of course, all the images should be pleasing, but sometimes, you get funny faces, you get laughter, all of that kind of stuff. please listen to me. The very first image that the bride's mum needs to see when you're delivering a catalogue of images to them is a pleasing picture of herself. And she's a very, very beautiful, very, very stoic-looking, beautiful, dignified lady, and I really like this picture. All right, and here's Dad. So Dad's wandered in. He's getting help with his waistcoat, and I'd already met him, actually, and we'd had a little bit of a laugh and a giggle, him being very Irish, me being very Welsh, and so I'm kind of looking out for his personality. I've made my mind up about his personality. He's got a little bit of rigour about him, and so when he's having his waistcoat put up, he's kind of glanced at me, almost to say, oh, don't take a picture of me having my coat done up. But yeah, hey, you know what? Documentary photography, I like it. He liked it. All right, so we've moved on. Now remember, you will see at the end of this video the full photo film, which will have a lot more of the images. I'm just taking this in sections to show you my thought process through each part of a wedding day. One of the other important things I always talk to people about is this idea of storytelling and connecting the dots and connecting the locations. So here we've gone to the church, St Aldham's in Malmesbury, and they've spent a lot of money on their flowers, the decorations, etc. So this is just a very simple shot of the church, just to connect the dots, keep the story moving. Now, of course, your mileage may vary on this, but as a documentary photographer, I'm totally candid, which means I'm not going to stage anything. But one of the things that I'm always looking out for is the details. And so one of the groomsmen holding the order of service is a nice picture to get. I'm not going to kind of make him hold the front of it out to me. I'm not going to put it on a chair and take a nice portrait of the book, etc. I'm just looking out for these moments. If they don't happen, they don't happen. But ultimately, in my mind, I'm thinking details throughout the day also. And so this is a nice little capture. All right, so the cars start arriving now, and I'm trying to get behind the priest here. Actually, he's a deacon, purely because he's there for a start, but I don't want to just have half of him in it. I want to include him in the story of the day. You know, they've chosen a Catholic church for a reason, and so he's just as much part of the day as the rest of the guests. So the cars arrive in. Luckily, the window's down. This is a bridesmaid. She's looking very happy, very smiley, so it makes for a perfect picture. Okay, so Claire is on the other side of the car. She's going to get out from the other side. I've figured this out now, so I move around. Now, this is a reasonable picture. It's not going to win any awards, but it's a nice, elegant picture of Claire getting out of the car. Sometimes the procedure for getting out of the car is quite complicated, especially with large dresses, etc. So I'm always looking for pleasing pictures. I'm not going to include pictures that are unelegant or unflattering. And likewise, I'm not going to stop this moment. I'm not going to tap Dad on the shoulder here, who's in the foreground, and say, excuse me, can you move out of the way? That is not my role. He's there, he's doing his thing, he's about to help her out of the car, and it's just as important for him to remain in that moment as it is for me to try and get my picture. In fact, it's more important for him to remain in that moment than it is for me to get the picture. Okay, so this is where I start using my knowledge of weddings to understand what's about to happen. Right now, Claire is having her veil pulled over her head by her bridesmaids. Again, this isn't a particularly amazing picture, but what it does tell me is that there's likely to be a veil lift when she gets to the front of the church. So in my mind, normally the father will do that. Sometimes the dad will do it. Sometimes the husband-to-be will do it, I should say. Sometimes they both look at each other and think, who does this? And sometimes the bride will do it herself. But what I do know by seeing this is that there will be a veil lift. And so I can prepare myself ready for that when she does get to the front of the aisle. And you'll see in a moment, that's exactly what happened. Okay, that final look at Dad, you know, that kind of just before the wedding ceremony starts. Here we are, Dad. We've been planning this for so many years, months, whatever. And it's time to go. And there's that lovely connection with the eyes. I also like the bridesmaids here, you know, the one on the right who's looking at Dad, also a lovely big smile on her face. They know it's time. So at that point, I will run to the front of the church. I won't actually run. I'll just walk down like a normal person. And here we can see, and now I'm looking for kind of the guests and that interaction between them. We've got Oliver here at the front looking very kind of reflective. And then it's the bride's mum who's looking at him thinking, I really like him, which was very obvious throughout the day. Very, very lovely family. And this is also a really nice shot. I like it. You know, is that nice, again, thinking about the light as well, so my angles, positions. Malmesbury Church, St Aldham's Church, does not have a lot of light. It comes flooding in from the left as we're looking at this frame now. So I know that I have to work with that throughout the ceremony. At this point also, I will be checking my electronic shutter. So I will switch it to silent, switch my Fujifilm, in this case H-H2S X-T4s, to electronic shutter, and I'll run a burst of images just at the wall, basically, making sure that there is no banding. Depending on the lighting that the church has, there may well be banding. If there's banding, I'll go back to the mechanical shutter. If there isn't banding, I'll keep it on silent. Silence is golden. All right, also keeping an eye, obviously, on Oliver and his best man. A little bit of an interaction here, very simple shot, but again, thinking about that light. Remember, that light is flooding in from the left-hand side. You can see it in the people in the background. Okay, this is a really lovely picture as well. The bridesmaids have actually come down the aisle now. You'll see them in the Photofilm at the end of this video. But I love this picture. It's one of my favourites from the day. We've got the two bridesmaids on the left-hand side, you know, that lovely side light again coming in. And then we have that one bridesmaid in the middle who's about to burst into tears, and they're getting ready for the bride to walk down the aisle. And she's coming right now. All right, and here we go. So now I'm using my 56mm lens to get that long shot of the bride and her dad entering the church. Very central. I'll get behind the priest, shoot over his shoulder if necessary. Sometimes they'll just move out the way, which is very nice of them. But this is where I'll use the 56. And then when they get a little bit closer, I'll move over to the 18mm so I can get a wider shot. I love the bridesmaids on the right-hand side in this photo. Also, that combination of the smiles, the light, the emotion throughout the day, very, very important. Now, I'm not just fast shooting this. I am looking out for the moments. Yeah, I'm taking maybe 1 or 2 frames per shot, but it's really important to be an observer. Here is that veil lift. Remember, here is the veil lift that I knew that was going to happen because of what happened outside of the church. Really important to use all of your wits, keep your senses about you, and understand what may or may not happen throughout the rest of the service, throughout the rest of the day, in fact. All right, and then usually, if there's a bride lift, if there's a veil lift, I should say, and the dad has done it, there's normally a peck on the cheek or a big hug or something like that. So I keep the camera raised. You can see I've moved over to the left-hand side now, and that's primarily because the bride is the most important person, like it or not, guys, during the ceremony. So that's the position I want to be in. And invariably, again, if the bride has been pecked on the cheek by her dad, by her lovely dad, then he's more than likely going to either hug or shake hands with the groom. In this case, you can see them shaking hands. What a beautiful smile that Claire's got on her face as well. Really, really, really nice moment. Now remember, this is the very embryonic stages of their marriage. This also is a really beautiful picture, so I'm constantly looking through these shoot-throughs. And you'll see I'm back on the 56mm now, so I've just got my 18mm around my neck, 56mm is connected to a spider holster on my hip. I can just detach it very quickly, look out for these moments, click, get that shot, and that's a really beautiful shot also of Claire's sister. These kind of details, these are the times, so this is the first time that they've touched each other on the day that they're going to get married. That kind of grip of the hands, that little touch of the fingers sometimes. But again, looking out for it, not overshooting. I'm not shooting everything that happens. I'm observing. For the most part, the camera is down and I'm watching. Standard shot over the shoulder of the priest. Again, cherry picking those nice moments. If you just sit there and shoot 2,000 frames during a ceremony, you're just going to upset people. Simple as that. You want to be as discreet as possible if you're shooting in a documentary style. Okay, and another really nice kind of belly laugh. This is really beautiful. I can't remember what was said, but I do know the deacon. I know him very well, in fact, because this church is in my hometown of Malmesbury. He's a very, very funny person. In fact, he was presided over my own wedding to Gemma many years ago. Okay, so a couple more just standard kind of ceremony shots. All the stuff that's going on throughout the ceremony. I love the groomsmen in the left-hand side of this frame. This is the moment he's just said, "You are married." And we have all of the clapping and the hollering. And remember, you will see the whole photo film at the end where you'll see far more images. Here is the ring exchange. Now, sometimes you won't be able to, well, in fact, most cases as a documentary photographer, you're not going to get that iconic editorial close-up shot of the ring. Don't worry about it. It's not your job if you're shooting in this style. The most important thing is the moment. It's certainly not interrupting the moment. Here they are, coming down the aisle. This is the portfolio shot, I suppose. In fact, this is the main shot on my website, on the homepage of my website right now. Really, really beautiful, very, very standard, very traditional kind of walking down the aisle shot. I'm waiting for them to hit that pool of light that's coming down from the right-hand side now. I'm at the back of the church. But as you can see from this frame, there's a very harsh pool of light just in front of them. I don't want to get the picture in there. I want to avoid that. So I'm getting this shot first. Then I'll switch to the 18mm as they come closer to me. Now, with this particular picture in mind, let's just have a quick look at how I edited this. This will take 2 minutes, no longer, and we'll come straight back to the pictures after that. So we'll pop over to Lightroom right now. Okay, so this is the reset. This is the original raw file. You can see it was 24th of September 2022 last year. I'm just going to crop it, straighten it, get all of that stuff right, just at the beginning, just to make sure everything is looking good. This will take literally 2 minutes for us to do this. I'm now looking for the white balance. It's a little bit too cool for me. I'm going to edit this as black and white, but you still need to get your white balance as accurate as possible when you're doing black and whites. Now you can see there's a lot of hot light here, that window that I told you about. So I'm just going to try and deal with that a little bit. I'm going to go to the linear gradient tool. Just going to drag across from the right-hand side, not particularly carefully, and just going to drag the highlights down, just so you get a little bit more detail in those guys on the right-hand side. Close that down. Next, I'm going to think about the finish. So I'm actually going to use my Essential Film Delta 800 maybe. These are my favorites at the moment, Delta 800, Delta 800 Plus, Delta Style. As you can see, they're very, very contrasty and very filmic, but we'll do a little bit of touching up of these images. So we'll go with the Delta Style up first. Now you can see that the dress, because of this preset now, is a little bit hot. So I'm going to bring the highlights down a little bit, just generally across the frame. Then I'm going to go back to the masking tools and create a brush. And I'm going to brush over Claire's wonderful dress. Again, doesn't have to be too detailed in the brushing. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and what I want is more detail here and less highlights. So I'm going to push the clarity. You can see the shadows coming back into the dress there now. I'm going to push the texture up a little bit. I'll probably bring the highlights down as well, just on that brush, so we get a lot more detail there now in the dress. Looks amazing. Yep, that's good. Happy with that. Okay, let's close that down. Looks okay, looks okay. Just going to dab a tiny bit of light onto Oliver's face, because as you know, he is facing away from the source of light now. So just a tiny touch. Push it up, exposure, there we go. Obviously it needs to look natural. We don't want it looking like there's a fake light from somewhere on the left-hand side. All right, let's go down to my utilities that are in the preset pack. And density, I'm going to push this a little bit because I want it to pop on the frame. This is a really beautiful, strong picture. So we'll go for density medium. That gives it a nice kind of lift on the page, I think, when you're looking at this in a book or on a website. Grain-wise, I can add some grain. I want it to be filmic, so I'm going to add grain 400 rather than 3200. Of course, in the utilities, you can just remove that as well if you wish. And I'm just going to pop a subtle vignette on there as well. And that's it. That's pretty much the finished image. Now, when I look at it, I will notice at this point, I'm not overly happy with those lamps hanging from the ceiling, so I'll probably just crop those out rather than do anything else. I'm certainly not one for photoshopping things in and out. If I can crop it out, I can. If I can't, it will stay in there. So we'll just crop this just to move those annoying lights out of the frame until we're happy. Yeah, and that looks pretty good to me. Right, back to the pictures. Okay, so remember, just before that brief interlude for the editing, they were walking up the aisle. Now, what I will do, because I'm at the back of the church, it's really, really important that you don't just stay at the back and let everybody else go out. Whatever you do, don't hold the doors open for people. As polite as that may be, you need to move yourself outside, right behind the bride and the groom, because sometimes things like this happen. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. But certainly, if you're held in the church and you're holding the door open and you're waiting for everybody to get out, you're going to miss all of the hugging and all of the congratulations. And that is the bread and butter time for a documentary wedding photographer. And this is what I mean. This is Dad giving his daughter. Now, remember, we saw Dad right at the beginning, putting his tuxedo on. And this is him now giving his daughter that lovely hug on her wedding day as a newly married wife. Beautiful moment. And I'm positioning myself behind the bride at this point. She does not want to see my face in front of her constantly. There will be loads of pictures of her throughout the day, so it's important, for me at least, to stay behind the bride at this point during this hugathon, as I like to call it, and capture these moments. The guests doing the hugging, they're the important people at this point. And there will be a lot of this that goes on, especially if it's a nice gregarious wedding and everybody's friendly and happy. So I'll be getting as much of this as possible. This is the bride's dad's brother, her uncle, giving her another big hug as well. Very lovely, amazing, lovely Irish family, absolutely beautiful. And it was very much an Irish wedding. They partied very late and very hard, as you'll see later in the photo film. And then we move on a little bit. Here we go, another one here. Now, sometimes, obviously, I'm shooting this 2, 3, maybe 4 frames when these kinds of shots happen. And in this case, I'll decide when I'm doing the culling which is the strongest one, whether I prefer this particular one or whether I prefer one where perhaps the actual hug is engaging. We only need one. We do not need to be delivering 6, 7 shots of the same moment. That's definitely going to be overkill. It's very important. Less is more. If you have 3 amazing images and one of them is absolutely stellar, then removing the other 2 amazing images will make the stellar one even stronger. It will stand out even more. Okay, and now we're preparing for the confetti shot, and I love looking for, this strong light here. Granny, she's getting ready. It's a nice image of what's about to happen, and bride and groom have gone back into the church. Now, I don't organise any of this. The groomsmen will organise all of this, and they're coming out. You can, again, get a sense of this difficult light that I had to work on. This was at the end of September, but it was very harsh light throughout the day. They're coming out of the church, really nice smiles, very traditional kind of shot here. I'm on the X-T4 shooting this with the 18mm. The confetti starts flying, and it is very standard, but it's also very nice and very happy moment. Again, very important for me to not be right at the front and getting in the way of everything. They move forward, and this is where it gets very tricky. Also, in the editing, I had to move the light or adjust the light on the left-hand side quite substantially for this particular picture in itself. Okay. All right, so here we are with the, it's important to get details as well as everything else. And they were having an outdoor reception. The meal was going to be outdoors, even though it was the end of September, which I did think, it's going to be a little bit dark come the speeches time. And it was very dark. So details, obviously, just going around the tables, very simple things, the table decorations, the wine, all of that kind of stuff, very important, still part of the day. And they still appreciate having that. This is a kind of venue shot that I would like to take. It's important, as we said, setting the scene, doing that connecting the dots. This is the back of Barnsley House, and with the guests involved as well, adds a little bit of context, but really it's just a simple shot. These kind of shots, the shots you'll see now, are what I would call record shots. These are shots of people who were basically at the wedding, not particularly doing anything dramatic, not very artistic pictures, but they're the people at the wedding, and it's important to just get a series of those images throughout the day. More detailed shots here. We'll just let a few of these images go through, and you can just have a look at them yourself, just to see the kind of thing that I'm looking out for through the drinks reception. Okay, this is an important picture. This is the wedding ring, and also she's holding the flower. So I'm always looking out for a nice shot of that wedding ring. That we remember we couldn't get that close up during the church when they exchanged rings, but now I've got the opportunity to do it. So that's something I've got in my armoury. I'm waiting for that to occur. More hugging, more guests, usual kind of thing that goes on at every wedding. Right, so the bride and groom have been called to the table. This is them entering the room, if you like, although the room was outside, so there wasn't a room as such. And it starts to get dark now. It starts getting a little bit dusky in the light. Everybody kind of sitting down. And you can see now that I'm starting to push the ISO up as the speeches start. This is 500 ISO. I'm still shooting at f1.2 because I really love that. That new 56mm 1.2 lens is absolutely fantastic. Standard pictures. And then, you know, as we move under the canopy, I'm now shooting at 2000 ISO. I tend not to go lower than 1/125th of a second if I can help it. So we're now hitting 2000 ISO, just kind of guests and looking at the speeches, all of that kind of stuff. Same thing here. You know, because they're under the canopy, I'm now looking for people where the light is falling nicely on their faces. I don't want to fight the light. Always use the light. Light is your friend, and it's always there. It might be hard to find sometimes, but it's always there. So now this is the dad doing his speech with all of his pieces of paper, crumpled pieces of paper. Now he's actually outside of the canopy, but I'm still having to shoot at 1000 ISO here. It's getting a little bit dark. And as you see in the photo film later, that during the speech section, some of those images were actually shot at 12,800 ISO. It got very dark very quickly, end of September, so dusk falls, nighttime arrives. This was around about 5, 6, maybe 7 o'clock at night, I can't remember exactly. So here, look, 12,800 ISO, 1/70th of a second. I've dropped the shutter speed, and I'm shooting this at 12,800. This is the groom, and he's right in the middle, so I'm challenged here. I'm challenged by position. One of the things I won't do is get in people's way. It's very important for me not to stand in front of people while the speeches are happening, and so I'll do my very best to get as many shots as I can, but from the periphery when everybody is sat very close together. $10,000 ISO for that one, but again, looking for that light, very important. And the bride, again, nice big happy smile. The flowers in front are a problem. I can't avoid them, but I can't get in close enough to get in a better position. 12,800 ISO, 1/75th of a second. Time to breathe in tight. Dad still carrying on with his speeches. What a lovely man he was. Actually a really, really cool wedding all throughout, in fact. Now, as they often do, they get everybody to look under their tables, and they will have a picture of the groom or you know, a funny picture of some kind. And I don't want a person, a guest, to just hold a picture up and let me take a picture of it. I want it in context. That's the important thing. Okay, so we're getting to the dancing part of the day. This is them running into the room, and they danced. They partied hard. This was a midnight coverage for me. I was with them till gone midnight, in fact. And it was a dance floor that was jumping all of that time. So the standard first dance, you can see that the lights are really tricky here. Very purple uplighting, very small room, in fact, actually, considering the place that they're in. So everybody kind of stood back and let them do their first dance. Just want a couple of shots of this. It's not important to get hundreds of pictures of the first dance. And then everybody onto the dance floor. And this is where the 18mm really comes into its own. It's lovely and wide. I'm holding it above my head here. So I'm using the tilt screen on the X-H2S, and I can see over my head shooting down. Now, we're talking about the light here. And remember I said there's no tips on lights here. But what I'm using in this case is something called a Lumimuse by Manfrotto. It's a little tiny handheld LED light. And I'll link to it below if I can find a link for it. And it's wonderful. You don't need to use flash. I can hold the light in one hand. On my left-hand side, I'll use that with my left hand. And on my right hand, I'll be shooting with the camera. Really, really easy to use. Really easy to get in close. Use the lamp. It's got 4 or 5 levels of dim levels, if you like, so I can do some really nice things without having to worry about using flash or carrying stands and all of that kind of stuff with me. ultimately, during party time, it's just time for me. I have no problems kind of getting in the mix. I love looking out for pictures like this. One of the bridesmaids and her husband, or boyfriend, I'm not quite sure, just on the sidelines there, having a good old-fashioned snog. Really beautiful, really nice picture. The pleasures of alcohol, hey, kids? And again, right in close, really working that 18mm lens now. The ISO is being controlled somewhat by the lights that are coming from the DJ. Actually, it wasn't a DJ, it was a pianist, and he was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm utilizing that. I'm making sure that I'm using that light that's available to me. I'm not hanging around at the back of the room when those shadows look. I'm waiting at the front for all of these great opportunities where the light is going to help me out. Good old-fashioned conga. Don't see that very often at weddings these days. But they did the conga, and off they went, out of the room, into the garden, I think, back into the room. Really pleasurable wedding to shoot. And again, I'm shooting at 1/125th still, ISO 5000 here, with that Lumimuse light. A little bit of motion, especially during the dancing, is not a problem. I quite like it, in fact. And I like the grain that those higher ISOs will give. Generally, we're just buzzing around on the dance floor now, looking for stuff to take pictures of, getting in close. I'm shooting sometimes from the hips, sometimes over my head with the LCD flipped down so I can see what I'm doing. Sometimes here, in this case, with the camera straight to my eye. But at no point am I really interfering with what's going on. That's really important to me. These guys are having such a good time, and I don't want them to be thinking, oh God, there's the photographer again. So I'm just hanging around, just looking out for the shots that I want. Again, I'm there. This dancing, I think, started at maybe 8 o'clock, and I was there till gone midnight. So that's a good 4 hours of photography. I'm not going to just shoot every single thing that happens on a burst scene and hope for the best, because I feel like as photographers, and I said this before, anybody can be a photographer, but it's up to us to be the observer. It's up to us to spot, take the pictures, see what's happening, take the pictures that you think the guests and the clients will be interested in and happy to receive, rather than giving yourself a complete nightmare and shooting a million pictures and hoping for the best. People that were very well dressed and very well behaved at the beginning of the ceremony suddenly become very different late at night, don't they? But you can see how the Lumimuse is working here. It's keeping the ISO down. I'm getting really close, nice and close, up high. You can see here one of the bridesmaids is seeing me taking that picture and is got a great big smile on her face. We're coming towards the end of the evening now, and I think just a couple more pictures for me to talk you through. So yeah, as I said, midnight coverage means I was there till the end, the final dance, and this was the final dance. And so the bride and groom, Oliver and Claire, are now kind of in this circle of love, if you like. And they're playing up to each other. And again, I'm not breaking that circle. I don't want to be in it. I want to be able to take these lovely, candid pictures of them as things happen. Give them memories of the things that happened throughout the day, rather than fabricated or fairy tale pictures. And I think we got one more before the photo film. And yeah, this is that guy. What an amazing pianist. Literally, all those cards you can see on the table, people wrote down songs and he just played and he sang and he knew everything. And he was absolutely amazing. All right, there you go. That's an insight or my overview of some of the images. And now I will play the entire photo film, so you'll see the whole wedding. All of the images, including those really high ISO ones during the speeches. And yeah, coming up right now.
All right, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed it, or more importantly, I hope you got something useful out of it. As I said, all of those images were edited with my own Lightroom profile and presets, which of course I'll link to below, and you're very welcome to go along and check them out. I also have some new workshops coming up if you wish to check those out as well. Links below. That's it. Any questions, leave comments below. Please do subscribe and like the channel if you so wish. It does encourage me to do a little bit more, which is good. See you next time.